aside and gave her a business card with her personal cell number written on the back, saying she'd worked with cases involving wealthy families before. 3 days later, Ashley started blowing up my phone with texts begging me to meet her alone because she had information about Derek that could help Mia. I didn't trust her at all, but agreed to meet at a Starbucks downtown and brought Priya as backup, who sat 2 tables away pretending to study. Ashley looked terrible with dark circles under her eyes and kept checking her phone every few seconds before finally admitting Derek had done this before at his prep school. She said his parents paid off a girl's family and got her to transfer schools senior year after something happened at a party, but she didn't know all the details. That night, Priya and I spent hours searching online for any girl who transferred from Derek's prep school during his time there, and finally found someone named Emma, who left suddenly during what would have been Derek's junior year. Priya sent her a message on Instagram explaining we were trying to help someone Derek hurt and asking if she could talk, but Emma read it immediately and blocked us without responding. 4 days passed before Mia's first ultrasound appointment, and I went with her to the clinic downtown where they did the scan. The second that heartbeat sound filled the room, Mia completely broke down, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe while the tech quietly left to give us privacy. She kept saying she couldn't hate something so innocent, even though it came from something so violent, and I just held her while she cried for 20 minutes straight. The following week, we went back for another appointment, but when we walked into the waiting room, Derek was already there arguing with the receptionist about his rights as the father. Security had to physically drag him out while he screamed about getting a court order, and Mia had such a bad panic attack in the parking lot that we had to call an ambulance. Sandra from the support group came to visit Mia in the hospital, and that's when she mentioned she was actually a retired attorney who now helps assault survivors pro bono. She looked over the Harrison family's offer that we'd saved and immediately started pointing out illegal clauses and coercive language that could get them in serious trouble. After that scare, I packed a bag and moved into Mia's apartment because she was too scared to be alone anymore. We fell into this weird routine of making tea every morning, taking her prenatal vitamins together, and walking to campus side by side like bodyguards. Everything felt like we were just waiting for something terrible to happen and trying to pretend life was normal when it absolutely wasn't. Meanwhile, Kendra had been pretending to forgive Ashley and invited her for coffee to supposedly make up and talk things through. While Ashley was in the bathroom, Kendra grabbed her phone and found a recording app with dozens of files, including conversations from our group hangouts. She took photos of the app and the file names, but left everything exactly as she found it so Ashley wouldn't know we knew about the recordings. 2 weeks later, Mia's parents showed up at her apartment without warning after the Harrison lawyers contacted them again with a new offer. Her dad spent an hour lecturing about forgiveness and keeping the baby because abortion was a sin, while her mom kept whispering about what people at their church would think. Mia finally told them to leave, and when they wouldn't go, she threatened to call the police, which made her dad turn red and storm out, dragging her mom behind him. That night, after everyone else went home, Mia finally broke down and told me everything about what Derek did to her. She sat on her couch with her knees pulled up to her chest, and her voice was so quiet I had to lean in close to hear her. She said Derek had been so nice at first, buying her flowers and taking her to fancy restaurants and making her feel special. Then he invited her to his apartment to watch a movie, and she thought it would be fine since they'd been dating for 3 weeks. But once they were alone, he started getting pushy, and when she said no, he got mad and held her down. She kept saying no over and over, but he was too strong and she couldn't get away from him. I held her while she shook and cried, and I finally understood how bad it really was. 5 days later, Priya called me freaking out because some girl named Emma from Derek's old prep school had messaged her on Instagram. Emma was scared to put anything in writing, so we drove 3 hours to meet her at this little diner near her college. Wow, the way Emma finally reached out after blocking them at first makes me wonder what changed her mind. Maybe she's been carrying this burden alone for years? She looked around the whole time like someone might be watching, and her hands shook when she picked up her coffee cup. Emma told us Derek did the same thing to her when she was 16 at a party at his parents' house. She went to the hospital after and had a rape kit done, but Derek's family paid her parents $200,000 to keep quiet. The check cleared, and suddenly Emma was transferring schools and signing papers saying she wouldn't talk about it. Emma gave us the number for another girl named Sophia, who also left Derek's prep school really suddenly sophomore year. She warned us that the Harrison family had connections everywhere, including judges and police commissioners and university boards. We weren't just fighting Derek anymore, but his whole family's power and money. By week 9, Mia was starting to show a little bump when she stood sideways in front of the mirror. She'd put her hand on her stomach and just stare at herself with this blank look on her face. She decided she wanted to give the baby up for adoption, but hadn't told her parents yet because she knew they'd freak out. I helped her look up agencies that worked with assault survivors, and we found one that let you pick the family yourself. Then at 2 in the morning, Ashley called me crying so hard I could barely understand her. Derek found out she'd been talking to us about the prep school girls, and now he was threatening to send her nudes to everyone. She was finally scared enough to think about helping us for real instead of protecting him. 3 days later, Sandra filed for a restraining order against Derek for Mia saying he'd been harassing and stalking her. The judge granted it right away, which surprised everyone until Sandra told us later she'd clerked for that judge years ago. It was our first real win, and we actually celebrated with champagne at Sandra's office. The friend group threw Mia this little party at Jenna's place, calling it a strength party instead of a baby shower. Even Ashley showed up looking tired with a bruise on her arm she kept trying to hide with her sleeve. We painted our nails and watched trashy TV and pretended everything was normal for one night, but Derek couldn't leave things alone, and by week 10, his frat brothers were leaving notes on Mia's car saying she was a liar and worse things. Campus security said they couldn't prove Derek told them to do it even though everyone knew he did. Sandra took pictures of every note and saved them all in a file for the harassment case she was building. Sophia agreed to talk to us on an encrypted video call call because she was too scared to meet in person. She told us Derek had this whole pattern where he'd find girls without strong families and love bomb them with attention and gifts. Then once he got them alone somewhere, he'd assault them, and afterwards act like nothing happened. She showed us photos of bruises on her arms and pages from her diary where she'd written down dates and what he did. 4 days later, I went with Mia to her counseling session where she was working through her decision about adoption. The therapist helped her write a letter to the baby explaining why she was choosing adoption and how it was because she loved them. Mia folded up the letter and gave it to me, asking me to keep it safe until the baby was old enough to understand. I put the letter in my desk drawer with all our other important papers when my phone started blowing up with texts from my dad. The Harrison family lawyers had sent cease and desist letters to my parents' house and to Jenna's and Kendra's families too. My dad was freaking out because he runs a small contracting business and can't afford any legal problems. He kept calling and begging me to drop this whole thing before we got sued. My mom was crying in the background saying we were going to lose the house. Jenna's parents were threatening to pull her out of school if she didn't stop. Kendra's mom drove 3 hours just to yell at her in person. We were all sitting in my dorm room trying to figure out what to do when Ashley showed up at my door. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. She handed me her phone and just stood there shaking. On it were voice recordings from when Derek got drunk at his apartment. You could hear him laughing about what he did to Mia. He was bragging to his friends about how she tried to push him off, but he was stronger. He said she was asking for it by coming to his room. There were also texts where he told Ashley his dad would handle everything if Mia tried to report it. Ashley had been recording him for weeks without him knowing. She also had screenshots of him planning to get other girls drunk at parties. 3 days later, Mia had to meet with the adoptive parents the agency found. They were this nice couple from the suburbs who had been trying to have kids for 8 years. The woman started crying when Mia explained why she was giving up the baby. They promised to send pictures every month and let Mia write letters when the baby got older. They even said they'd tell the child the truth when they were ready. Mia seemed relieved to find good people who understood. The next week, things got scary when Derek's frat brothers cornered Tiana and Priya in the library. They blocked them between the book stacks and started saying stuff about campus not being safe for girls who spread lies. One of them grabbed Priya's backpack and dumped it out. But Priya was smart and had already started live streaming on Instagram when she saw them coming. The whole thing went viral in like an hour with everyone sharing it. People were commenting that they recognized the guys from Sigma. Campus security finally showed up but said they couldn't do anything since no one got hurt. Sandra called us the next day and brought another lawyer who specialized in going after rich families. She said we had enough evidence for a civil case, but getting criminal charges would be harder. The DA's office didn't like prosecuting wealthy kids because their families had connections. She suggested we start a media campaign to put pressure on them. She had contacts at local news stations who might be interested. Meanwhile, Mia was finally feeling better since her second trimester started. The morning sickness stopped and she had more energy. We went shopping for maternity clothes at Target, and she actually laughed when she couldn't button any jeans. It was the first time I'd seen her happy in months. She got these stretchy pants and some bigger shirts. We even looked at baby stuff just to see what the adoptive parents might need. 5 days later, I came back from class to find my dorm room door open and my stuff everywhere. Someone had broken in and taken my laptop with all our evidence files on it. My roommate said she saw 2 guys leaving but didn't recognize them. Campus police came and took a report but basically said there was nothing they could do. Thank God I had backed everything up to the cloud the night before. After the library video went viral, other girls started messaging us about Derek. One girl said he grabbed her at a party and wouldn't let go until her boyfriend showed up. Another said her drink tasted weird after he handed it to her, and she had to leave. 3 girls from his high school reached out saying he did the same stuff back then. We started documenting everything in a spreadsheet with dates and names. Ashley finally moved back home with her parents the next week. Before she left, she gave me a flash drive with every text, photo, and recording from her whole relationship with Derek. She had saved everything, including photos of them together and messages where he talked about other girls. Her last text just said to make him pay for what he did. Then the university administration tried to threaten Mia with academic suspension for missing too many classes. They said her absences were excessive, even though she had doctor's notes for everything. It was obvious the Harrison family was pulling strings. Sandra immediately threatened them with ADA violation lawsuits and discrimination claims. The suspension threat disappeared within 24 hours, but we knew they'd keep trying other stuff. A week later, my phone rang while I was in the library, and the caller ID said The Globe, which made my heart skip because that's our city's biggest newspaper. The woman on the other end said her name was Rachel, and she'd been digging into the Harrison family's foundation for months looking at tax stuff and heard about our viral video from the gala. She wanted to meet us at this coffee shop near campus, and when I told the group chat, everyone got nervous, but we decided to go anyway. Rachel showed up with folders full of documents and spreadsheets showing how the foundation moved money around to hide stuff, and she said she needed someone to go on record about what Derek did to connect it all. We sat there for 3 hours going through everything, and she took notes on her laptop while recording us, and by the end she had this look in her eyes like she'd just found gold. 2 days later, we were all studying in Jenna's apartment when Mia suddenly went completely still with her hand pressed against her stomach, and tears started rolling down her face. She whispered that she felt it move, and we all just sat there not knowing what to say, because this baby was real now and growing inside her from the worst thing that ever happened to her. The next morning, I was walking out of the student union when Derek's father appeared out of nowhere and blocked my path, and I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with cigarettes. He said he knew where my little sister went to high school, and which bus she took home, and that accidents happen all the time to young girls who aren't careful. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone, but I managed to hit record in my pocket while he kept talking about how his family had connections everywhere and could make our lives very difficult. The way Derek bragged to his friends about overpowering Mia, while Ashley secretly recorded everything makes me wonder how many times he's done this before without anyone catching him. Those voice recordings must have taken incredible courage for Ashley to make. The security cameras in that exact spot just happened to be broken that day, which seemed way too convenient, but I had the audio on my phone at least. Sandra filed for an emergency protective order 4 days later, and the judge's face got darker and darker as she read through all the evidence we'd collected, including my recording of his threats. Derek's family sent 3 lawyers to argue about First Amendment rights and how we were harassing them, but the judge wasn't having any of it and granted the order for our whole friend group. That weekend, the adoptive parents Mia had chosen invited her to dinner at their house, and we drove 40 minutes to this nice suburb where they had a yellow house with a swing set already in the backyard. They showed her the nursery they were setting up with soft green walls and little elephant decorations and told her about their 5 years of trying to have a baby before their doctor said it wouldn't happen naturally. Mia asked if they'd tell the child that she loved them enough to give them a better life, and they both started crying and promised they would tell that story every single day. The Boston Globe published their article the next Tuesday, and within hours it was everywhere online with the headline about patterns of assault and cover-ups at an elite university. The Harrison family stock dropped 3% in one day, and Derek's lacrosse team suspended him while they investigated, and suddenly everyone on campus was talking about it. My inbox started filling up with messages from girls I'd never met saying they knew other girls with Derek stories, and by the end of the week we had 5 survivors from his prep school days. They all had the same story about being isolated at parties and waking up confused and their families getting big checks to transfer